Nobody believed what the billionaire did just because of a dance. But what he saw that afternoon changed everything. Julian Hartwell had built an empire from scratch, or so the magazines said. In truth, he had inherited most of his wealth from old money. Billionaire by name, untouchable by nature, Julian was the kind of man who walked into a room and made silence fall. Not because people respected him, but because they feared him. Cold. Distant. Always busy. That's how his employees described him. But none of them dared to say it to his face. Especially not in his own mansion. The only thing that seemed to warm Julian's heart was his 8-year-old daughter Lily. Born with a rare neurological disorder that left her unable to walk, she spent her days in a wheelchair, her tiny frame almost swallowed by velvet cushions and blankets. She had her mother's eyes, but not her presence. Her mother had passed away during childbirth, and ever since, Julian had buried himself deeper into his billions, building businesses and buying silence. He couldn't bear to look at Lily for too long. She reminded him too much of what he had lost. And so, Lily spent most of her time alone, except for the house staff. Nannies came and went, but one person stayed, Clara, the maid. A woman in her early 30s, with deep brown skin and a natural warmth in her voice that comforted everyone, even in silence. Clara didn't just clean. She listened. She cared. She danced when no one was looking. And Lily loved her. Before we dive deeper into this journey, if you enjoy stories that touch the heart and inspire the soul, hit the like button, subscribe, and comment below where you're watching from. We love hearing your stories too. But Julian had rules. One of them? No dancing. This isn't a circus, he once snapped at Clara when he caught her humming near the dining room. Just do your job. She had apologized quietly, but the sparkle in her eyes never faded. Not even when he treated her like wallpaper. One rainy afternoon, Julian returned home earlier than usual, unannounced. He walked into the hallway and heard music. It was faint, soft piano jazz, coming from the sunroom. He frowned. Who had turned on the speaker system? That's when he heard laughter. Lily's laughter. Pure, unfiltered joy. He approached slowly, the sound of his Italian leather shoes muffled by the rug. As he peeked around the doorway, he froze. What he saw made his heart skip a beat. There in the center of the sunroom was Clara, spinning slowly, barefoot on the marble floor, holding Lily in her arms. The little girl's head rested on Clara's shoulder, her tiny hands holding onto Clara's back as they danced together, swaying to the rhythm like they were the only two people in the world. Julian's first instinct was anger. How dare she? But something about Lily's smile, the way her eyes glowed, the life in her face, stopped him. He hadn't seen his daughter like that in years. Maybe never. Still, he cleared his throat loudly. Clara turned around, startled. Her face fell when she saw him. "Sir, I..." He raised a hand. "Put her down. Now." Lily looked up at her father. "Daddy, we were just dancing. Please don't be mad at Clara." But he didn't respond. He just stared at Clara, then turned around and walked away. What no one knew was that something inside Julian had cracked in that moment. Something old. Something buried. That night, he couldn't sleep. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing the echo of his daughter's laughter. He closed his eyes and saw Clara's arms holding Lily, like a mother would. He remembered how his wife used to dance around the kitchen, laughing, spinning, just like that. The next morning, he made a decision that shocked everyone. But no one knew the real reason behind it yet. The entire mansion buzzed with whispers the next morning. Clara had been summoned to Julian's office, something unheard of for a maid. She walked nervously down the long marble hallway, her soft-soled shoes barely making a sound. Her heart pounded in her chest. She wasn't sure if she was about to be fired or something worse. Julian sat behind a massive oak desk, the morning light casting long shadows across the room. His face was unreadable, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then, in a tone cold and sharp, he asked, "Do you think my house is a stage for entertainment?" Clara stood tall, even as fear bubbled inside her. "No, sir. But your daughter, she feels joy when we dance. She smiles. She forgets her pain. Isn't that worth something?" His jaw tightened. "And what gives you the right to decide what's worth something in my house?" Clara could have stayed silent. Most would have. But she didn't. Maybe money makes you feel powerful, Mr. Hartwell. But it doesn't make you right. The room went silent. Julian's icy stare didn't waver. But instead of yelling, instead of firing her on the spot, he leaned back in his chair. "You're brave," he said quietly. "Or foolish. Maybe both." Then he gestured to the door. "Go. I'll speak to you later." Clara left the office feeling more confused than ever. She didn't know it yet, but her words had struck something deep within Julian, something fragile and long forgotten. Later that day, he watched Lily from afar. She was in the garden, alone in her wheelchair, tracing circles with her fingers on her lap. Her joy from the previous day had faded. Without Clara, the spark was gone. And that haunted him. He remembered the way his late wife used to sing to Lily while still pregnant, how she swore that the baby danced in her womb to every melody. He remembered the promise he made the day Lily was born: "I'll protect her. I'll make sure she has everything." But everything, it turned out, didn't include happiness. That evening, Julian did something unthinkable for a man of his stature. He knocked on the door to the staff quarters. Clara opened it, startled to see him. "I'd like to ask you something," he said. "Would you teach me how to dance with my daughter?" Her eyes widened. "What?" "You heard me. I want to try. But you'll have to be patient. I haven't danced since, well, a very long time." Clara stared at him for a moment, searching for sarcasm or mockery. But none came. Only quiet sincerity. She nodded slowly. "All right. But you have to promise me something too." He raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" "Don't do this because of guilt or pride. Do it because you want to make her feel loved." For the first time in years, Julian gave a small, genuine smile. "I don't know if I'm capable of that anymore." Clara's voice was soft, but firm. "Then let's find out." From that night on, something began to shift inside the Hartwell estate. In secret, Clara taught Julian how to hold Lily without fear, how to move slowly with her rhythm, how to let go of his stiffness and just feel the music. At first, it was awkward. Julian stumbled, overthought every move, and kept apologizing. But Lily didn't care. "You're doing amazing, Daddy," she would say, giggling. That alone made the billionaire feel richer than any of his business deals ever had. Still, not everyone was happy. Whispers grew louder among the staff. "Why is he spending so much time with the maid? Have you heard? He's dancing now. This isn't how a rich man behaves." Even Julian's business partner, Greg, noticed the change. "You're missing meetings, Jules. Investors are asking questions. What's going on with you?" Julian brushed it off with a smirk. "Let them talk. I'm investing in something far more valuable right now." Greg frowned. "More valuable than billions?" Julian looked out the window, where Lily and Clara were laughing in the garden. "Yes. Much more." But just when it seemed like this new chapter might bring healing, a secret from the past came knocking. And it threatened to destroy everything. It started with a letter. One morning, as Julian was finishing breakfast with Lily, something he never used to do, his assistant arrived with an envelope marked private. It wasn't typed. It was handwritten, in familiar cursive. Julian's hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Inside was a single page, and the words hit him like a punch to the chest. "She has no idea who Clara really is, does she?" No signature. No return address. Just that single, poisonous line. Julian folded the letter tightly in his hand, forcing his breath to stay even. But his mind had already started racing. Who sent it? Why now? He glanced out the window where Clara and Lily were laughing again, their bond stronger than ever. That joy, it felt too good. Too perfect. That night, long after everyone had gone to bed, Julian went into his private study and started digging. He made calls. He pulled up background checks. The kind only someone with power and wealth could get access to in the middle of the night. And what he found shook him. Clara's real name wasn't Clara Williams. Her legal name was Clarissa Monroe. She had changed it 6 years ago, shortly after a court settlement involving the Hartwell family. Julian's family. The details were scarce. Buried. But one name stood out in the old documents: Margaret Hartwell. Julian's mother. Clara had once been a housekeeper in his mother's estate, before he took over. And apparently, she had filed a complaint. Something about mistreatment and unpaid wages. There was even mention of Clara's mother being fired after falling ill while working for the Hartwells. The entire file had been quietly settled. No press, no noise. Classic billionaire damage control. Julian sat back in his leather chair, staring at the fireplace, his mind reeling. Why didn't she tell me? Was this some kind of revenge? Was Clara playing a long game, getting close to his daughter, earning their trust, only to humiliate him in the end? The next morning, Clara noticed the change immediately. Julian wouldn't look her in the eye. He was cold again, distant. Lily picked up on it too. "Daddy, why aren't you dancing today?" she asked, her voice tinged with disappointment. "I'm busy," Julian replied, too quickly. Clara waited until the evening to speak with him privately. "Is something wrong?" she asked softly. Julian didn't respond at first. Then he looked at her with narrowed eyes. "Who are you really?" She froze. Her heart sank. I know everything," he interrupted. "The lawsuit. My mother. You changed your name and walked right back into my house." Clara stood silent for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, I did." Julian clenched his jaw. "So this was your plan all along? Get close to my daughter to hurt me? Humiliate me?" Tears welled in Clara's eyes. "No, that's not why I came back." "Then why?" he demanded. "Because I needed a job. Because my mother passed away with nothing. Because your mother took everything from us, and I had to survive. I didn't even know this was your house until after I started. And by then, Lily had already stolen my heart." Julian turned away. His mind was a storm of pride, fear, and betrayal. For someone who had always controlled everything, every deal, every number, every headline, this felt like chaos. "I trusted you," he whispered. Clara stepped closer, her voice trembling. "And I trusted you too. I trusted that maybe, just maybe, you could be the father Lily needs. Not a rich man. A present man." He looked at her then, really looked. She wasn't begging. She wasn't trying to manipulate him. She was simply being honest. But it was too much. Too fast. "You're fired," he said coldly. "Leave by morning." And just like that, Clara was gone. Lily cried when she found out. "Why did she leave, Daddy? What did you do?" Julian didn't have an answer. And for the first time in his life, no amount of wealth or power could fill the emptiness he felt inside. But fate wasn't finished with the Hartwells. And neither was Clara. The mansion grew colder after Clara left. Not in temperature, but in soul. The laughter vanished. The music stopped. Lily, once blooming with life, withdrew again into silence. She refused to eat at the table. Refused to go outside. Even her physical therapy sessions became a struggle. Julian tried to distract himself with work, but not even the thrill of closing a $200 million deal brought him comfort. The walls of his empire suddenly felt more like a cage. He had fired the one person who had brought real light into his daughter's world, over pride. Over fear. Over the ghosts of a past he never cared to understand. He checked in with his staff, asking casually if anyone had heard from Clara. They hadn't. She disappeared as quietly as she came. One night, as he walked by Lily's room, he heard her crying. The sound was muffled, but it pierced through him. He stepped inside. "Sweetheart, talk to me." She didn't look at him. "Why did you make Clara go away?" Julian knelt beside her bed. She wasn't who she said she was. "I don't care," Lily said through tears. "She loved me. And I loved her." The words hit him harder than any business loss ever had. That night, Julian stayed up in his office until dawn. He didn't look at spreadsheets. He looked inward. He thought about his mother's legacy, not the one in Forbes, but the real one. The people she stepped on. The families she damaged. The loyalty she demanded, but never gave. Clara and her mother had just been more names on a long list of the forgotten. And Julian, he had inherited all of that, along with the fortune. But what if he didn't have to pass it on? With a deep breath, he reached for his phone. Not his assistant. Not his lawyer. He called her. "Clara." The The number rang once, twice. Then her voice. "Hello." He paused. "It's Julian." A long silence followed. "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from," he began, "but I need to see you. Please." "Why?" she asked quietly. "Because my daughter is hurting. And so am I. And I think I made a mistake. A very rich, very foolish mistake." Another silence. Then she said, "Where?" They met at a small cafe on the outskirts of town. Julian arrived in a black SUV, dressed down for once. No suit, no tie, just a man stripped of ego, waiting in the corner booth. When Clara walked in, wearing a simple blue sweater and jeans, something shifted in the air. She sat across from him. No smile. No greeting. "I read everything," he said. "About what happened to your mother. About mine. About you." Clara didn't speak. She just looked at him, her eyes guarded. Julian continued, "I thought having money made me powerful. But the truth is, it just made me blind. I hurt you. And I hurt my daughter. And for what? A name? A legacy? My pride." Still no response. He leaned in. "Clara, I'm not asking you to come back as my maid. I'm asking you to come back as someone who can help me heal. Who can help us heal. Lily misses you. She needs you. And so do I." Clara looked away, tears welling up. "Do you even understand how hard it was to walk into that house every day? To see everything your family took from mine, and still show up with a smile, for your daughter?" "I do now," he said. "And I can't change the past. But I want to build something different from this moment on. Not with money. With honesty. With love." Her hands trembled slightly as she wiped a tear from her cheek. "I'm not sure I can trust you." "Then let me earn it," Julian said. "One step at a time." At that moment, something inside Clara softened. Maybe it was the way his voice cracked. Maybe it was the way he finally looked human, not like a billionaire, but like a man broken open. She nodded slowly. "All right. But this time, I set the rules." Julian smiled. "Deal." What neither of them knew was that Lily had secretly recorded her father's conversation from the hallway that night. And what she planned to do with that video would change everything. Lily had always been observant, more than anyone gave her credit for. Being in a wheelchair meant people often spoke around her, not to her. But she listened. She watched. And that night, when she'd heard her father on the phone, her small hands had quietly pressed record on the tablet beside her bed. She hadn't planned it. She just wanted proof. Proof that her dad was finally seeing Clara, not as a maid, but as a person. Someone who mattered. The next day, while Julian and Clara met again, Lily posted the video online. The title was simple: "My billionaire dad finally said the words I've waited my whole life to hear." She didn't expect it to go viral. But within 24 hours, the world was watching. The clip showed Julian's raw confession, his trembling voice, his apology. It was shaky, but powerful. A billionaire, stripped of ego, asking for forgiveness, not from the public, not from shareholders, but from a woman society would normally overlook. A black maid, who had loved his daughter like her own. By the next morning, news outlets were already running with it. Billionaire father redeems himself in heartfelt plea. She was just the maid, until she changed everything. Love over wealth, the story that's breaking the internet. Julian had no idea. It wasn't until his assistant burst into his office, waving her phone, that he found out. "Sir, you're trending." He took the phone, his face tightening as he watched the clip. His voice, echoing in the room. "I want to build something different from this moment on. Not with money. With honesty. With love." For a moment, he was mortified. This was private. Emotional. Raw. A side of him he had never shown, not even to himself. But then, he saw the comments. This is what real wealth looks like. More billionaires need to watch this. This man is teaching us more than any business school ever could. The maid deserves the world. Clara saw it too. At first, she was angry. She hadn't signed up for exposure. But then she saw Lily's caption below the post. "Clara taught me how to dance." My dad taught me that it's never too late to change. I love them both." Clara wiped her eyes. That little girl had done what no adult could. She'd taken all the pain, the silence, the shame, and turned it into something beautiful. Meanwhile, Julian stood at the edge of a decision that would once have terrified him, stepping out of the role of the untouchable billionaire and into the world of accountability. He called a press conference, not with suits and flashbulbs, but in his own garden, where it all began. Lily was beside him in her chair. Clara stood behind them, hesitant, but present. "I'm not here to talk about investments or markets," Julian began, standing in front of the cameras. "I'm here to talk about values. About how money can build walls, but love breaks them down. This woman," he gestured to Clara, "gave my daughter joy. And I took that away because of pride. Today, I want to do more than just apologize. I want to do something meaningful." The crowd leaned in. "I'm starting a foundation," he announced. "Named after my daughter's favorite word, dance. It will support children with disabilities, and it will provide scholarships for workers like Clara, caretakers, maids, nurses, who too often go unseen." Lily smiled proudly. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Reporters bombarded him with questions, but Julian stayed calm. "Is this a PR stunt?" one asked. Julian answered, "If I wanted publicity, I'd throw a party on my yacht. This is about gratitude. It's about my daughter. It's about Clara. And it's about doing something with this fortune that finally feels right." The applause that followed wasn't loud. It was soft, genuine, the kind that comes when people know they've just witnessed a turning point. But the real transformation hadn't happened on camera. It had happened quietly, in Julian's heart. The man who once saw value only in numbers, now saw it in people. And that's when something unexpected happened. Clara stepped forward, took the microphone gently from his hand, and said just 6 words that silenced the crowd. "I forgive you. We move forward." The journey wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. And what came next would test their bond more than ever. With the world now watching, the Hartwell estate slowly transformed from a cold monument of wealth into a home filled with intention, warmth, and healing. Julian kept his promise. The Dance Foundation launched within weeks. He poured millions into it, but more importantly, he gave it time. His time. He visited schools, sat in support groups, and at every event, Clara was there, no longer in a maid's uniform, but as co-founder and director. Her presence demanded respect now, and people gave it freely. Lily, meanwhile, blossomed. Her laughter was louder, her posture stronger. Physical therapy became a joy again, especially when music was involved. Sometimes, she would lead tiny workshops with other kids, teaching them how to dance with their hands and shoulders, even if they couldn't walk. She had inherited her mother's spirit, and Clara's grace. But as they grew closer, something else quietly unfolded between Julian and Clara. They never spoke of it out loud. Not at first. But the stolen glances during meetings, the late-night planning sessions that turned into shared stories, it was undeniable. The billionaire and the maid, 2 people who had come from opposite worlds, now meeting in the middle, where compassion lived. Still, Clara held back. One evening, after a long charity event, Julian walked her to her car. The stars were bright above them. He looked at her, hesitant. "Do you ever think about what this is?" he asked. Clara tilted her head. "This. Us." She smiled softly. "Julian, I think about it every day. But my heart doesn't come cheap. Not even for billionaires." He chuckled. "I wouldn't expect it to." Then she added, "And I don't want Lily to get hurt. She's been through too much already." Julian nodded, respecting the boundary. "Then we take it slow." But not everyone was rooting for them. Julian's board of investors was growing uneasy. "You've turned this company into a social experiment," Greg hissed during a heated meeting. "Philanthropy doesn't pay dividends." Julian leaned forward, calm but firm. "Maybe not. But my conscience finally does." Greg's eyes narrowed. "Don't forget where you came from." "I haven't," Julian replied. "That's exactly why I'm doing this." Still, pressure mounted. Shareholders threatened to pull out. News outlets that once praised him now questioned his priorities. Has Hartwell gone soft, one headline asked. But Julian stayed the course. He redirected his fortune, not all, but enough to make waves. He cut funding to unnecessary vanity projects, rerouted it toward medical innovation, arts programs, and caregiver scholarships. Every step was intentional. Every dollar had purpose. It wasn't about less wealth. It was about better wealth. Then one afternoon, something unexpected arrived in the mail. A letter. From Clara's late mother. It had been written years ago, found among some old legal records after her passing. Julian had the Hartwell lawyers forward it to Clara. It was short, but powerful. If one day they see you, truly see you, don't shrink. Shine. Your kindness is your legacy, not theirs. Never forget that. Clara clutched the letter to her chest. Tears ran silently down her cheeks. That night, she knocked on Julian's door, not the back entrance. The front. He opened it, surprised. Clara. She looked at him with eyes full of fire and grace. I'm not here as a guest. Or as staff. I'm here as someone who deserves to walk through the front door. Julian stepped aside. Then let me welcome you properly. They didn't kiss. Not yet. But the air between them changed. It carried weight, history, redemption, and something tender still blooming. Meanwhile, Lily watched from the staircase, a little smile on her face. About time, she whispered. But fate wasn't done with them yet. The foundation had caught the attention of a powerful rival billionaire, a man who believed Julian was setting a dangerous precedent. One that could shake the very structure of inherited wealth and social hierarchy. And he wasn't about to let that happen without a fight. His name was Everett Langston. A tech magnate worth over $40 billion, Everett had made his fortune by building systems that measured efficiency, not empathy. He believed in meritocracy, at least, his version of it. And to him, Julian Hartwell's transformation wasn't inspirational, it was dangerous. While the media hailed Julian as the billionaire with a heart, Everett saw a man threatening the very foundations that kept the ultra-rich untouchable. When the Dance Foundation began receiving backing from other wealthy donors inspired by Julian's story, Everett decided to intervene, not with lawsuits or headlines, but with something more subtle and far more destructive. He approached Julian with an offer, a merger between their two empires. You keep the foundation, Everett said, sipping a $4,000 whiskey in Julian's office, but let me handle the business side. Bring your board back to stability. Cut out the noise. Julian saw right through it. This isn't about partnership, he replied. It's about control. Everett leaned forward. No, Julian. It's about influence. You can inspire a few hearts, or you can run the world. Julian stood up. If I have to choose between ruling the world and helping my daughter dance again, I choose the music. The room fell silent. Everett left that night with a tight jaw and a promise. Compassion is expensive, Julian. One day, it'll cost you everything. But Julian had already paid a higher price, his pride, his ignorance, and had gained something far more valuable, connection, truth, and a second chance at love. Weeks passed. The pressure from Langston circles intensified. Stocks dipped. Investors panicked. Rumors of Julian being unstable began swirling across financial media. And yet, donations to the foundation kept rising. Videos of Lily dancing, Clara speaking at conferences, and Julian helping serve meals at rehab centers spread like wildfire. The public saw the story for what it was, a redemption arc that felt real in a world often ruled by facades. One night, Julian walked into the sunroom, where it had all started. Clara was there, spinning gently with Lily to soft music, her bare feet gliding across the marble floor. "May I?" he asked, extending his hand to Clara. She smiled, and together the three of them danced, awkwardly at first, then with rhythm, then with laughter. There were no cameras. No reporters. Just a girl in a wheelchair, a man who once thought wealth was everything, and a woman who had taught them both that love cannot be bought, only given. Afterward, Clara stepped out to the garden, where Julian joined her. The moonlight cast silver shadows across her face. "You know," he said quietly, "before you came, I thought my legacy would be my wealth." "And now?" she asked. He looked at her, eyes soft. "Now I hope it's my courage. To change. To let go. To love." Clara placed a hand over his. Then you're already richer than most billionaires will ever be." That was the moment he kissed her, gently, humbly, like a man who had finally learned the value of a heart. Later that year, on Lily's 9th birthday, the Dance Foundation held its largest event yet. Children in wheelchairs rolled across the stage. Clara gave a speech. Julian introduced scholarships named after Clara's mother. And then Lily spoke. She took the microphone, her voice steady and pure. "My dad used to think money was the most important thing. But then he met Clara. And she showed us both how to dance. Not just with our bodies, but with our hearts." The crowd erupted. Not with applause, but with tears, with joy, with hope. Julian, once the coldest man in the room, held Clara's hand tightly, his other arm wrapped around his daughter. From that moment on, their story lived far beyond wealth, beyond status. It became a story of what happens when we stop leading with our fortune and start leading with our humanity. And in the end, they didn't just rebuild a family. They redefined what it means to be truly rich. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe to our channel, share this video and tell us in the comments, what part of this journey moved you the most? There's another story waiting for you, and it might just change the way you see the world. Thank you so much for watching and see you soon.